Seth David here with the world-famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're talking about QuickBooks Online for auto restoration. This is a really cool sort of niche business, and I recently had a conversation with a guy who may become a client. And I was sort of inspired by that conversation to really think through the mechanics and the logistics of how I would set up the accounting for a company like this. So why not do a video? Maybe he'll be so impressed with this video that he'll want to hire me. Anyway, I always love, kind of thinking through challenges like this. So I wanted to share with you what I've come up with in terms of how to track the cost. The whole key to this is we really need to track the cost of the inventory, starting with the purchase of the car, but then adding to that the related labor and materials that we're going to put into the car before it's ready to be sold. And we want to track that all in the inventory cost, and then make sure that when we eventually record the sale of that car, the correct amount comes out of the inventory asset, gets charged to cost of goods sold, so I can run a gross profit on that car, and I can see here's what I sold it for, here's all the costs that I put into it, the cost of goods sold, and of course the difference is the profit that I made on that car. So here is what I've come up with. First, we're going to need to set something up. So we're in the products and services area. Notice I've got an auto restoration category created here, and I've got a SKU called auto number 1. Right? And we're going to keep this generic because we can recycle these. Once I get this car sold, the next time I buy a new car to work on, I can use this again. And I can just append the name here if I want to, or use the description, right? Either way, I can put information in here so that when it's in use, I can put whatever information is needed so I can reference. I know which car in the shop it's actually referring to, right? And then you can just swap that out as you need to. The way this gets set up is, as you can see, it's an inventory item, right? And I gave it the name, I gave it a SKU, which is useful. And here, of course, is where you set up the category. If it's not already in there, you can just add it. Okay, and then, of course, I've got it linked to an income account for auto restoration sales. That's what counts when I post the invoice to sell the item. And then down here, I have the expense account, auto restoration cost of goods sold. That's what's going to get used also when I sell the item, and the cost of it moves out of the inventory asset account and it goes into the cost of goods sold account. This is the challenging part, is getting the original cost plus all the costs that I add on to the cost of the car in restoring it to come out all at once when I record the sale, right? So we'll get that set up, and then we're ready to record the first transaction, which is going to be for the purchase of the car. So let's go new, and we'll create an expense. Okay, and we'll say we went and found Joe Clunker, who had his old clunker that he sold to us. We'll record it on July 1st. And right down here, we'll put in auto number 1 as the product or service. And let's say we bought the thing for $2,500, right? So we'll just record that, save and close. And never mind the classes for now. And over on this tab, I'm in the reports area. So I just want to run an inventory valuation summary. And you can see I've got my auto restoration category, auto number 1, and I've got it in there with a quantity of 1 for $2,500, right? So now we have to add on the restoration costs, right? Again, there's going to be parts and labor that we're going to use. So I'm just going to create a couple of simple examples where we'll enter an expense, one for each, and I'll show you how we sort of incrementally add this to auto number 1 here. So let's create an expense for the mechanic. Okay, and we'll pay him out of Wells Fargo. So we have Jim Mechanic. And so we bought the thing on July 1st. Let's say we start the work on July 6th. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the same inventory part, auto number 1. And let's say that we paid him $250 for his labor. Okay, save and close. I'll say yes. Now what this does is it's going to add an item to this. So now you can see I have a quantity of 2 for a total of $27.50, right? So I'll click in here on the quantity so we can start seeing the details. And you'll see that I've got the original amount, what we paid for the car, and the mechanics, labor cost. Now let's go purchase some or pay for the materials, right? So new, expense, auto parts store, right? We'll say this was on the same day. And again, we're going to put it to auto 1. We can use the description to describe what kind of parts we bought or anything like that. And let's say this was for $150. And I'll save and close. And I'll say yes to that. And now I've got everything recorded in here. So in some respects, this looks beautiful because I can clearly see, if I need to, I can add a column to include the descriptions on these. But I can see that we paid Joe Clunker for the car, $2,500 on the 1st. I can see we paid the mechanic $250 on July 6th, and I can see we paid for the auto parts also on July 6th. The problem is now I have a quantity of 3 with the total of $2,900 in costs. So let's say this is all we had to do on the car to get it ready for sale. We have one more transaction to record so that you can get this to work properly. We really need to get this broken down to where it's just got a quantity of 1 for the total cost of $2,900. That way when we sell it, we sell the 1 and everything works out perfectly on our financial statement. So let me show you what this looks like. Now what we need is a $0 transaction, and you'll see what I mean. Just bear with me if you heard me say that and you're like, what on earth are you talking about? So I'll show you exactly what I mean. Let's go create a new, and we'll stick with the theme of creating an expense. It doesn't even matter what account you put here because it's going to zero out, but we might want to put something like auto adjustments. I'd already set it up here. As the payee, just because we have to have a payee associated with it. Plus, this makes it really clear what this is, right? And so let's do this on the 7th, the day after we've completed the work, right? Just to put a good sort of chronology on it, as in we've done all the work, we know what all the costs are, and now we're ready to just kind of, aggregate it down to a quantity of 1 for the total cost. And in order to do that, we'll probably want to bring up the report on this other tab. Inventory valuation summary. So I know I need the total cost to be $2,900. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get rid of this. And then we're going to get rid of the 3 at $2,900 and add it back in based on 1 at $2,900. It's a little way of kind of tricking QuickBooks on this. So I'm going to say auto number 1 on both lines, because basically we're going to take all the costs out and put them right back in. So I need a -3 here. Negative $2,900. Be careful not to forget to make this a negative $2,900. If you make it positive, even with the -3, you're going to get a really interesting result, and it's going to be wrong. And then here, so we're taking it all out. Notice the rate kind of calculates, and we're going to have some rounding going on there. And I'll show you how to fix that after we're done. So I'm taking the 3 out for the total of $2,900. I'm putting it back in as 1 for the total of $2,900. The bill is 0, or the expense is 0, so that part doesn't matter. The date is important because this is the date that it's going to effectively do this adjustment, right? So here's our report. When I save this transaction, you're going to see this change to 1 at $2,900. Let's go ahead and save and close, and yes. Okay, and then we'll come back over here, and sure enough, it updates to 1, and we have a rounding issue, which again, we're going to fix, okay? So we have $2,901 now as the cost. So, and if I click in here, by the way, if I click on the quantity and then change the date range to all dates, you can kind of see the whole history. Here we bought it for $2,500. Here's the mechanic cost. Here's the auto parts, the materials cost. And then here's the adjustment, which, by the way, one good thing to do on this, I'll go back into the transaction, is for the reference number, put ADJ standing for adjustment, because then when we go back to that report, it's really clear. You can see that these are actually all line items from that adjustment. This is all the same transaction, the whole expense. Because what it's doing is it's kind of showing you, okay, so we took this out, we put this back in, and here are the different pieces based on how everything came in. It's reducing things out. It kind of averages things down. And that's, by the way, why we wind up with a rounding issue of a penny on this, which again, I'm going to show you how to fix. But now we've got the inventory right. So if I run my financials, let's go run we're not going to really see much on the profit and loss yet. Everything we've done so far is on the balance sheet. You'll see we have our inventory asset for $2,901, which is a perfect match. Okay, So now we're ready to record the sale. As you can see, we've got it aggregated to a quantity of 1 for the total cost of $2,900. We do have a rounding issue of a penny there, which we'll fix when it's all said and done, if we need to. We're going to see what happens when we post the invoice, right? So let's go ahead and I'll just bring this back to the overview and new invoice. Okay, and we'll just sell it to Bumblebee. Okay, and let's say we sold it on Friday the 10th. Nice quick turnaround on the car. So here we're going to sell auto number 1, and let's say we're selling it for $10,000. Nice little markup, right? This probably would be taxable. And we're going to hit save and close, and then we're going to look at some reports and see how this all worked out. I'll just uncheck that because we don't have a real customer to send an email to. All right, now let's go to reports. And let's run the profit and loss. Okay, and you can see I've got my sale price of $10,000 and my cost goods sold, which is off by a penny, right? And we're going to fix that. So let's go back to reports here. And if I run my balance sheet, you'll see that the inventory asset is, it's left with still a penny in it. So we're going to fix this with a journal entry. Right, we need to reduce inventory by a penny, and we need to increase cost goods sold by a penny. So I'm just going to duplicate the tab, and I do this so I keep my place, on these other tabs, because sometimes in the middle of this I might need to remember, wait, is inventory being reduced or increased by the penny? Right, so it's just kind of a best practice I use. So we're going to do a journal entry, do it on the sale date. For a penny. Okay, and again, this is what I mean. So inventory needs to be reduced. So we're going to credit inventory asset. Normally the rule is you can never post a journal entry to inventory asset. Everything always has to go through an item. The reason we have to do it that way in this case is because of the following. Let's go back here for a second. Right, and I'll go to reports. And I'll go to my inventory valuation. Let's just go to the summary for a second. Okay, you see how this has a quantity of 0 but an asset value of a penny? You can't fix this. In fact, this is still going to be in here even after I make this adjustment, but the balance sheet and the profit and loss will be accurate because there's no way. The QuickBooks Online really only lets you adjust the quantity when you're trying to adjust the inventory. Since there's no more quantity left to adjust, we zeroed it out. This just gets stuck there as like a phantom penny, and it will kind of average in and out as we recycle this item. It's a penny. I promise you it's not significant enough to, to throw your books off by enough to be concerned, right? So we're going to hit save and close on this. And sure enough, now my inventory asset is 0. And if I go back to this one, of course, hasn't changed. Like I said, that's still going to be there. If I go back to my profit and loss, now I have my exact $2,900 in cost of goods sold, my auto restoration sales of $10,000, and my exact profit of $7,100. Now, by the way, this profit and loss only shows this activity because I'm doing a video on a sample company. Let's say you want to be able to create a report that for sure is showing you only the activity for that product or service. You'll start with what I've got here, which is just your standard profit and loss. We'll customize it, go to the filter. We're going to filter for product or service, and I'll choose it for auto number 1 only. Don't choose the category because if you have other autos in that category, then it will include those. So you only want the 1. And the other thing is the date range. So I know I worked on this, during the month of July, right? So this month. And that way, if I've recycled the item, so the only that's another consideration is you may not want to recycle an item in the same month when you had another car using that item, right? You may want to wait till a full month closes out before you recycle an item like this for its next car. But as you can see, when I filter it for just that product, everything shows here. So that I've got, again, doesn't look any different on the surface here. But in this case, if there was other activity, with other income and cost of goods sold and other profit and loss activity, at this point you would be looking at this and nothing more because it's showing you only the activity around that one exact item. In fact, notice we're off by that penny again because when we adjusted that penny, it was on the general profit and loss. It didn't actually go through the item the auto number 1. So, and that difference is going to be sort of permanent. There's no way, like I said, to fix that. And it's not worth it for 1 penny. That, my friends, is how you do accounting in QuickBooks Online for auto restoration. As always, I hope you learned something here, had some fun along the way. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.